I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and today I'm here with Jorge Abreu. Jorge's bio is incredibly impressive and long. I'd rather, Jorge, just let you kind of go through and tell us your story. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, but I'm really interested, honestly, to hear about, how you got started and how you build to such scale, and then we like hear about that process along the way.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on your podcast. And I'll try to give you a shorter version of my bio, but pretty much I've been doing real estate investing for about 15 years now, full time. Graduated from college with an electrical engineering degree. Went to work for UPS in their engineering department. But before I even graduated, I knew I didn't want to be an engineer. I knew I wanted to work for myself and open some type of business. I wasn't sure what back then.
Sure.
But started doing some research. I mean, I even remember I was in a fraternity, and towards my later years of college, my fraternity brothers were always like, why aren't you going out with us? And I was spending the weekends in the library, and just like, back then, not everything was online
Right.
like it is
Right.
now.
Yeah. Technology has made it a lot easier.
Yes, absolutely. And I was kind of over it. And I had high goals. So I was researching successful individuals, and it kept kind of going back to them either building their wealth or taking their wealth to like the next level using real estate. Um, so I knew that's what I wanted to do at that point, and I kind of just kept digging and seeing how I can figure it out. Um, Started doing some single family investments, and then within 1 year of working at UPS, I ended up quitting and started doing real estate full time. Um, did a lot of single family, a lot of fix and flips, a lot of wholesales, some rentals. Jumped into small multifamily. Didn't love it because I had to be pretty hands-on with the management aspect of it.
Yeah.
Didn't realize I can do large multifamily and syndicate at that time. So kind of went back to the fix and flips is really what I liked. I liked taking those properties and transforming them. That's what got me to start J&T Construction, so a construction company, to scale that. And I was able to do so. We were doing maybe 30 to 35, or I think 1 year we even did about 40 flips. And then at some point I got a little burned out. Just the construction company started growing on its own as well. We're doing third party work too, and then the investment company was still growing, and I was just spread so thin. And around that same time, I got introduced to syndication, multifamily syndications, and it just blew my mind, man. It was the instant scale that I'd been looking for with just one deal. Um, so slowly, it wasn't even slowly, rapidly, I started shifting everything towards large multifamily. I sold any single family that I had at the time. Um, and that was about maybe 4.5 years ago. Um, right now, I've acquired over 5,500 units. We've sold some of those, so I'm somewhere in the, I want to say like maybe 4,500 units under management right now, and looking to get to 10,000 next year.
Yeah, that's incredible in terms of scaling up that quickly. That's a huge number and very impressive. I'm actually really interested. Did you have a construction background? And you went to school for engineering. Had you done anything in construction? Or you just were like, I'm going to start a construction company because I need that to work with my flips. So how did that play out for you?
I had some. So one of my uncles owns a fairly large construction company, and I had worked with him pretty much as his assistant for a little bit during college, and then I call it an engineering job at UPS. Really, I was an in-house general contractor. Like I was in charge of any expansions to the warehouses, or if we had to do the roof replaced, I was in charge of getting all the subs,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I was essentially a GC, is what I was. And so I felt like with that experience, I could pull it off. But yeah, I didn't think it'd become this big, put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously pulled it off. That's not that's not really there's no question there. It's more like what's interesting to me is it speaks to you know the mentality of being the CEO, being the guy that's able sort of to manage everything. So now you've got two large successful businesses running, and you are, I'm sure, not swinging a hammer, and I'm sure you're not doing any of that stuff. You're the one kind of pulling the strings, making everything work. So how did you rapidly switched everything over? How did that go for you? How did that, I think that's a common transition. A lot of people say, oh, I was in single family to some level and then switch over to multifamily when they realize the scalability. But I mean, that's a lot of units in a short period of time, and you had your construction company going. So how did you handle all of that?
Yeah, no, there's a lot there, and great questions, man. So, one, when I say that story, I always kind of, there's a disclaimer. Like if I'm not saying to drop what you're doing and what is bringing you income, because multifamily does take a bit. You got to build that traction, and um, depending on how you structure your deals, you may not be getting a lot of cash flow coming to you. So one, be careful with that, and then two, the reason I feel like I was able to do it was I did have the income still coming in from the construction company through that transition, and that's what kind of
Yep.
let me do it a little quicker. Um, and then as far as referencing the scale and in the short period of time, I just became very, very focused on, this is what I'm going to do. These are the units I'm going to get to. Um, I knew I had to do a lot of networking if I was going to do that. I knew I had to get my name out there. I had to let everybody know what I was doing. So um, that's what I did. And one of the reasons, I'm open to partnering with others. So I have a lot of co-GPs that bring me deals, and I come in and kind of, KP or fill the spots everywhere and kind of just guide the deal.
Yep.
So that helps me get into more deals. At the same time, internally, we're looking for deals. So having those two streams working together, I think has definitely helped.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having that track record, right? It's like, I'm sure there's no shortage of people that want to work with you in whatever capacity that they can. Did your construction company sort of help you in terms of the network and contacts for getting into multifamily, like whether that be on the finding deals and due diligence side, or even from a capital raising standpoint?
It has more than I thought it would. So one thing I noticed quickly as I started getting around, the community of other multifamily investors was that a lot of them did not have that construction knowledge. A lot of them were in software or medical or a lot of engineers actually, but like real engineers, not what I was. um, and they were pretty clueless when it came to CapEx, and I noticed that, and I was able to get into some deals with that experience, and it definitely helped with the growth. Still does. I mean, I still have some deals that it's one of the reasons that they're bringing me on is because it's a heavy lift, or just they don't want to mess with the CapEx, and they know I can handle it.
Yeah. And so in your deals, I assume your construction company is doing that work. You're essentially vertically integrated on whatever renovations and CapEx are going into those multifamily deals.
Correct.
Yeah. And when, so, I mean, maybe walk us through that. You're right there. I've interviewed people, and it's like there are a lot of engineers. There's a lot of people from the IT side of things that realize the benefits of syndication. There's medical. I mean, I'm a medical person. I'm a veterinarian. I also happen to have a construction background, not to the extent that you do, but maybe walk us through your process in terms of, like, when you pick up a deal, what you're looking for in due diligence. How do you work through that, and especially in the context of, like, helping someone who doesn't have that. Here's a numbers guy that's like, I've got this deal, everything works on paper, but is the CapEx going to blow it up?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I've got I'm sure at the end of this, I can leave my contact information, and I've got documents to help with that. I've got checklists, but very systematic, very systematic in what I do, and the processes we follow. So there's certain things I'm looking at when from every step, right? First time we're visiting the property, before we even have it under LOI, there's certain things I'm looking at. I want to the big ticket items, right? The roofs, the foundation, the concrete, um, the sewers. Is it cast iron or is it PVC? Some of the stuff are questions, simply questions that you can ask as well. So I have a laundry list of questions that we ask the broker or seller before we even step foot on the property. Sometimes they give us all the answers. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But we try to get as much information as possible. What CapEx they've done is always a nice one. If they can actually give you a list of the CapEx,
Yeah.
that can give me, if I know they've replaced 50 AC units and it's a 1970 property, and those 200 unit properties, so 150 AC units haven't been changed for 50 years. I mean,
right. There's a coming up pretty quick, especially in Texas. That's
yes,
the
yes. So
AC
I'm
needs
gonna
to work.
put a good amount of AC units in our CapEx. Things like that. It's just, for some reason, I found that not a lot of effort and work was going into the CapEx on the front end. Like,
Yeah.
I would literally, so on the construction side, we would have clients reach out to us, and we still do, that they've closed on the deal. It's been weeks or months. They haven't started any CapEx, and we ask them, okay, well, what's your scope? Oh, I don't know. Can you just meet us out here? It's like, what?
Yeah. You went ahead and bought it without knowing any of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy, man. We're talking about million dollar renovations. You would think more time would go into that, and it's also what your business plan depends on, right? Like, if you're not doing this CapEx, you're not inserting this money into your interior units or rebranding or whatever it is, unless you're buying this perfect property, which if you are, you're probably paying a lot and your returns are going to be very,
Right.
very minimal.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, we have several pre-construction meetings leading up to our closing. We have a finalized scope of work before we ever step foot on property, and day one we're knocking it out. We're implementing the business plan as quick as possible.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I love this. This is stuff that I think you're right. I mean, I don't have near the experience that you do, but I do think it's stuff that can be easily missed. And it's even just for people that maybe don't, they haven't seen the broker offering memorandums, right? The brokers will underwrite everything, give you a pro forma and all of this. I've never seen one have CapEx on it. I've just never seen them put hardly
Rarely, they'll
anything
try to
for,
tell you maybe
yeah,
something that the seller spent to get some of the upgraded units, and
right,
those numbers are usually ridiculously low
right.
compared to what it should be.
Right, right. And it's if you don't know that, like if you have no, I mean, you at least need to know that you need to be able to probably look at a roof and say that that doesn't look like it's going to last much longer. Or like you said, know that these older AC units aren't going to last much longer, and kind of know what you need to do. And then so you're doing this before even LOI. You're kind of getting in there and
Damn,
deciding
it's
stuff.
not going to be super extensive, but I've got my rule of thumb numbers and
Yeah.
my data, historical data, and um, I've got a spreadsheet that kind of I can quickly go through and say, okay, these are sloped roofs, and we're gonna have to replace half of them. It's got a formula in there. Boom, spits it out. Um, so I'm usually about 10% plus or minus from that first number,
Yeah.
the rough number, to when we actually get the final scope of work. So it's not super extensive, but it's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine that also importantly relates to, if you become an expert in a certain market. So the construction costs I'm in Los Angeles, they're not the same as they are in like Georgia or Texas or things like that. There's some things that are very different. So I think really knowing that market and I mean, having your own construction company, what you set the prices, you can kind of do that yourself. So it's a really nice, I personally, I'd almost rather be vertically integrated that way on the construction side, the CapEx side, than necessarily from like a property management standpoint. I know a lot of people integrate that way
Yeah, and obviously I agree, but because that is what we
because
are.
that's what
But
you've done. Yeah.
um, you bring up a good point, man. I honestly think too many investors rely on the property manager to handle their capex, and if it's a light capex, maybe, but still, like, you're taking their focus away from the property management aspect of it. I mean, you
Right,
want your work orders being taken care of. You want them to be pushing the rents or whatever, like
right, right.
focus on leasing. You don't want them to be focusing on, oh, we're redoing the concrete over here, and then when's the sub coming, and when's this
Yeah.
and that. Like, that's um, it's not their job, really. That's not what they should be doing. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I also think that somebody on the ownership team should have some type of background in construction as well, because
Mhm.
if not, you're relying on a vendor, right? Even if
Right.
even if it's J&T Construction you're going to hire, right? You're still relying on that vendor. Hopefully you trust me, and obviously I'm going to do good for you,
Right.
but if nobody else knows anything, then what if that vendor is not doing a good job? Like, who's going to call them out on it,
Right.
or whatnot? So, think of the big companies, right? Think of the multifamily owners that have 20,000 units. I mean, they've got a whole capex department. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that you brought up a great point. The property management staff, the on-site property management staff really should be, they're tenant managing, right? They're leasing managing. They're the people side of it, which is also very important. Like
Right.
you need to get good tenants into these nice units you've just created. But yeah, someone to
And
like
keep them happy,
splitting.
which goes to the work orders, which
Right,
that's,
right,
we're not going to come in and go check on leaking toilets or that, or
right.
that's the management team.
Yeah, yeah, and they're not. Yeah, you have, even if you have an on-site maintenance guy or two, like if you're having them turn over units, fully renovate a unit, well, who's doing the work orders? Who's taking
Right.
care of the tenants and keeping them happy? So I think that's a really great point that I think probably gets missed a lot. I feel like there's a lot out there. I'm sure there are bad property management companies, but like there's a lot out there sort of bashing property managers, and I think sometimes maybe the expectation of them to do all of this stuff isn't
That,
realistic. Like you can't
yeah.
do all of it well. So it's kind of
So
like,
that's funny
okay,
you mentioned that. So like, yeah, the staff really appreciates it, especially the on-site staff.
right,
The owner of the property management company maybe doesn't, because they see it as, well, that's taking profits from us, because the property manager is going to charge you a markup on the
right,
CapEx.
right, right.
But the actual on-site really appreciates when we're on there and we're taking care of all the CapEx, because like I said, they can focus on the other things.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to do, right? If you're going to reposition an asset, there's a lot to do both on the physical property side and then on the tenant side. So it's just kind of in that value add space, especially if it's a heavy lift, having your own construction division that is vertically integrated is fantastic. I think it's that, like I said, that would be my goal. If I if I can someday have lofty goals of having as many units as you, I would love to have that side of it be, we run it ourselves kind of thing, rather than looking for other people to do it. So
Yeah, and you mentioned something about investors too that I didn't answer, and I think it has helped us with investors as well, because they feel more comfortable. Um, Look, I originally started the construction company because we got burned a couple times by contractors, and getting burned on those deals, at that time being single family, um, killed the deal. At least killed some of the returns and the money we lost.
yeah,
So me starting this was, okay, I'm not gonna have that issue anymore. I'm not gonna get burned again. Um, so they know that's not gonna happen on these multifamily deals. We're gonna the contractor's gonna perform. We're gonna get the stuff done quickly. We're gonna get it done good quality. Um, so at least that's out of the picture.
yeah, yeah. It just has a lot to do with accountability, right? It's like if I if you don't have your own construct, now you're like essentially 3 or 4 steps removed, even as the asset manager,
Right.
from whoever's actually doing the work. So it's just being able to say, yeah, like the GC on this job I hired him, he's my guy, like you put him in place, that kind of thing. I think certainly that would provide a lot of kind of comfort and everything, and stability from an investor's viewpoint, that especially on these value add deals, that things are going to get done quickly and the right way. So do you feel like you're able to complete your business models faster than maybe people that don't have vertically integrated
Oh,
construction?
100, yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah. So you're probably going full cycle on deals, probably ahead of projections, I would guess, most of the time. I mean, the market helps with that too, but like I'd imagine you've got I don't know what you project for your turnaround time in terms. I'm sure it depends on the units and what has to be done, but I'd imagine it's easier to stay on schedule this way than relying on others.
Yes, yes, it is. And I mean, um, yeah, I mean, right now we're set to close to sell a deal, literally right on the 1 year mark. And the only reason well, okay, two reasons, right? So the market, like you said, has something to play with it, but at the same time, we were able to quickly implement our business plan, do the CapEx, get the rents up, and we're more than doubling the value of that property.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing for people. I mean, in a year, like I think we hope to double value in 5 years maybe, but in a year, that's incredible. So that's really speaks to the success of your company and that sort of business model. So I love it. Let me maybe let's shift gears a little bit, George, and we'll get into the part where I kind of ask you the questions that I ask every guest. So don't keep you all day. I honestly probably could talk about this construction stuff forever, but
I see you getting excited.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So the first question is related to the name of the podcast, being Know Your Why. So what is your why? What drives you to this level of success?
It's so it's changed, right? As life goes on. In the beginning, it was I just wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to work for myself and build something bigger than me. And then as I grew my family and I have 3 beautiful daughters, now it's kind of the same why, but now there's a face to it, right? Now I've got
Yeah.
these daughters that I want to provide the best life possible for. I want to leave something behind for them. So that's what keeps me going and growing and pushing every day.
Yeah, I really love that, what you said. Just it puts a face to the why. I think that's a great way to put it, because for me, it was really my kids that sort of flipped the switch as to what was important in life, right? It was like you just get to that point where you're like, I need to do this because it's going to provide me time freedom. It's going to, those little faces, like you say, are there like looking at you like, Daddy, we want to play, we want to go. You don't want to miss that time. So I think that's a really, really great point. Next question is, tell us something about yourself that maybe isn't common knowledge. Maybe a special skill or a hobby, maybe something you want to learn that you're trying to that you think will be interesting.
I love playing basketball. I don't know if that's good enough. I'm Cuban American. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but yeah.
I'm terrible at basketball, so I would. We won't play
I didn't say I
basketball.
was good. I said I like to play
Just
basketball.
enjoy it. It is good exercise. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Okay, so how can people reach you? If we, what's the best way of someone, whether they just want to kind of be invested in your deals, or maybe even, I know you talked about, partnering with people. How should they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2 best ways is we're constantly updating our website, so elevatecig.com. Any investment offerings we have will be on there. Free content. We're constantly updating it, so I think that's a great place to go. And then I offered earlier those forms and checklists for CapEx. I mean, I have a ton of them. If your audience shoots me an email at George or Jorge, really is the way it's spelled, so Jorge at elevatecig.com, and they mentioned that they heard me on your podcast, I will send them my arsenal of like free content.
Awesome. Thank you for that. That's extremely valuable. So whoever listens to this should take full advantage. That's fantastic. I appreciate that. Well, listen, I know you're busy. I don't want to take up your whole day. One last question. What piece of advice would you give to someone that is, I don't know, in your shoes 4 or 5 years ago, kind of towards the beginning of your journey into multifamily? What would you tell them to help them stay on track or grow or scale, whatever you think would be valuable?
Yeah, so I usually have a pretty go-to answer on this question. I'm trying to change it up. Let me think.
It's okay.
So I usually say focus, right? Focus, but I'm trying to be a little more detailed on what that means and kind of I still think that's probably the most important, just because there's so many shiny objects out there. If multifamily is what you want to do and you're convinced, then here I'll lump together 2 things, right? So focus, like I just said right now, and then earlier I also said that it's very difficult to just start doing multifamily and making enough income. So maybe come up with a strategic plan on how you're gonna transition from your W-2 or from, I don't know, let's say you're doing single family and you want to go to multi, kind of lay out that trajectory and just realize that it's going to take a little bit to build that traction in multifamily, that track record. And one way to kind of overcome that in the beginning, so trying to throw a lot at you here, but
I love it.
one way to overcome that in the beginning is just partnering with others, right? Partnering with others that have that track record or traction already built in, and seeing how you can bring value to them. So, if you think you can raise some equity, well, reach out to a syndicator that's got a good track record and let them know that, hey, look, I think I can bring some equity to your deal. Is there something else I can do? How else can I help? Actually, don't ask how I can help. I get that a lot, and I'd rather somebody tell me how they can help me versus them kind of just asking me.
Yeah, it's a very vague.
Yes.
It's a very vague way to try and get involved with someone, and it's the reality is that like you don't know how they can help because you don't know what their skill set is.
Correct.
So if you just
correct. Tell me what you're good at, and
right,
if that
right. If
works
you're
for
out of the
me,
blue, like, hey, how can I help you? They're like, I don't know. What do you what do you do?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Yep. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I think the focus thing is how do you, I mean, a little bit of a follow-up question to that, how do you maintain focus, right? Like how do you because it's easy to get, I mean, you've done several different things, right? Like you've done flipping, you said
Yeah.
you've done all of that. So how do you sort of stay, there's so much out there, there's so many different ways to get into real estate, like short-term rentals are huge right now, like there's all this stuff. How do you maintain that focus?
So, okay, it's a great question, but I analyzed what I wanted to get into, right? What part of real estate? Well, I guess I've been going down that path for years, but once I knew the ins and outs of multifamily, and I was convinced that's what I wanted to do, then I set my goals. Where, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, I want to get, my goal this year was 5,000. I hit it. I actually I got one more closing and I'll be at close to 6,000. My next year goal is 10,000. So, I'll continue to set those goals, and then when somebody brings me some storage deals, or they bring me mobile home park or industrial, I'm focused on the multifamily. I want to conquer that, and then maybe I'll diversify into some different real estate asset classes. But so that's one. And then if you want to break it down to like a daily, how do I focus daily or weekly? I have my main rocks that I need to accomplish that month, and then that week, and then comes down to that day. So no more than 3 is really like the sweet spot. 3 things that you're setting out that you need to accomplish that day, and those 3 things are pushing you forward to reach your goals. Then you stay focused that day and you make sure you knock out those 3 things, and you're going to get distracted, like not handling some things on emails, or an employee that this and that. There's some fires I'm going to have to put out, but I'm going to control my day. I'm going to schedule it appropriately to, there's certain times where I'm going to put out those fires, and then there's certain times where I'm going back to knock out my main goals for that day.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's perfect answer. I mean, yes, on the micro level, what are you doing, but ultimately you have goals for your business, and then you don't go after anything that doesn't accomplish that goal for you. So it's just, I think that's a great, that's the macro. And then the micro is like, I love that piece of advice about like, okay, I have 3 things in a day. What are the 3 most important? Because I think, sometimes we write down to-do lists and it's like, we got 15
Yep.
things on there. And I'm like, well, I'm never getting all of that done. And then it's just overwhelming trying to think what's okay to not, you know what I mean? So I think that's fantastic. Awesome. Well, George,
sorry, one more thing. I was gonna say, don't let others dictate your day. Like,
yeah. Well, be in control of your time is exactly it.
Absolutely.
This is all great. George, thank you. I really do. I appreciate your time. I think really this will be a hard one to extract content from, because I feel like everything you said is very actionable and good advice for people working their way into multifamily. I think it's fantastic. So thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll say goodbye.
All right.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.